You're 53 years old, and you've spent your entire adult life in service to the law. Law school at UNAM, 20 years as a prosecutor, appointed to the federal bench at 44 after a career that put hundreds of criminals behind bars. You believed in the system, genuinely believed that justice could be served through proper procedure, that the courts were the last defense against chaos. Your colleagues called you incorruptible. Your family called you righteous. You called yourself a servant of something larger than yourself. Your wife is diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at 51. The disease moves fast, stealing her memories, her personality, the woman you married 30 years ago. The care she needs isn't covered by your government insurance. Specialized facilities, experimental treatments, the constant attention that might slow the progression. The costs are astronomical. Your salary as a federal judge is respectable, but nowhere near enough. You burn through savings in 8 months. You take out loans that will take decades to repay. You watch your wife disappear while the bills pile up like accusations. A lawyer approaches you after a hearing. He represents clients who appreciate the difficulty of your situation, he says. Clients who have resources and who value relationships with people in positions of authority. They're not asking you to free murderers or dismiss serious cases. They're asking for small considerations, favorable bail decisions, procedural delays, the kind of discretion that judges exercise every day without anyone noticing. In exchange, your wife's care will be fully funded. Every treatment, every facility, every specialist she needs. All you have to do is listen when they call. You know what he's offering. You've spent 20 years prosecuting people who took these deals, who sold their positions for money, who justified corruption with circumstances. You know exactly what you'd become. You also know that your wife has maybe 5 years left, and those years could be spent in a state facility where she's warehoused with dozens of other patients, or in a private center where she's treated like the person she used to be. The math is impossible. The choice is already made. You take the first payment 3 days later. The requests start small, exactly as promised. A bail hearing where you set the amount low enough that the defendant can pay it. A trial delay that gives the defense time to prepare, or time for witnesses to reconsider their testimony. A procedural ruling that excludes evidence on technical grounds. Nothing that would overturn a conviction on appeal. Nothing that screams corruption to anyone watching. Just the quiet exercise of discretion in favor of people who happen to be connected to the organization. You tell yourself it's not that different from what judges do every day. Discretion is built into the system. Bail amounts vary, trial dates shift, evidence rulings go either way depending on interpretation. You're not perverting justice. You're just tilting it slightly, in specific cases, for specific reasons. The criminals you're helping would probably get off anyway with good enough lawyers. You're just making the process more efficient. The money flows to your wife's care. She's transferred to a facility in Guadalajara that specializes in Alzheimer's patients, with private rooms and round-the-clock attention and therapies that insurance would never cover. You visit every weekend, hold her hand while she struggles to remember your name. Sometimes she thinks you're her father. Sometimes she thinks you're a stranger. Sometimes, for a few precious minutes, she knows exactly who you are, and you can pretend everything is normal. Year 1. You've influenced the outcomes of 7 cases. Drug trafficking charges that resulted in acquittals when key evidence was excluded on technicalities you manufactured. Money laundering cases dismissed on procedural grounds. Deadlines missed, forms improperly filed. The bureaucratic failures that give judges cover to throw out cases that should have been slam dunks. A murder charge that ended in mistrial when you allowed the defense to introduce evidence that should have been excluded. Evidence that painted the victim as the aggressor and the killer as a man defending his territory. The defendants walk free, return to the organization, continue doing what they were doing before the inconvenience of arrest. You don't know their names. You don't want to know their names. They're just case numbers, files that cross your desk and leave again. Human beings reduced to paperwork so you don't have to think about what they'll do with the freedom you've given them. The cocaine will keep flowing. The bodies will keep appearing. The machine will keep running, oiled by your decisions. Your reputation remains intact. You're still the incorruptible judge, the prosecutor turned jurist who can't be bought, the man who put hundreds of criminals behind bars before taking the bench. Lawyers speak of you with respect. Young prosecutors dream of trying cases in your courtroom because they've heard you're fair, you're thorough, you believe in justice. The irony is so sharp, it cuts every time you hear your own name spoken with admiration. You've been bought completely, owned by people who could destroy you with a single phone call to a journalist or a federal investigator. No one suspects because the image you've built over 3 decades is so convincing, so carefully maintained. The corruption hides behind the reputation. The reputation makes the corruption possible. You are the perfect asset. Visible, respected, above suspicion, and completely controlled. A prosecutor you used to work with brings a case to your court. Her name is Carmen, and you mentored her 20 years ago when she was fresh out of law school. Major trafficking operation, dozens of defendants, the kind of case that makes careers and breaks organizations. She's prepared meticulously, built evidence walls that seem impossible to breach. Witnesses who flipped. Financial records from 3 countries. Physical evidence that traces the product from Colombian jungle to American streets. You recognize her passion. It's the passion you used to have. The belief that putting bad people in prison actually matters, actually changes something. She doesn't know you're about to gut her case.